Hello, listener. The fact you hear this means you're alive. If you're new here, consider subscribing and comment below where you're listening from. Let's begin the story. My name is Nolan Quinn. I lived alone on the 42nd floor when the outbreak started. I kept lists, maps, and times. I did not wait for orders. I shut the door and made a plan I could follow when my hands shook. I wrote 5 rules on the wall. No lift after dark, lights low. 1 door, 2 bars, 1 backstop. Talk short, no mercy at thresholds. I said it out loud and I believed it because there was no one left to believe it for me. Barricade day was simple. I moved the couch and the bookcase into a single line. I bolted a crossbar, wedged the lower gap, and set a chair under the latch so I could feel pressure through my foot. I taped a line that kept me from standing in front of the peephole. I set a mirror by the hinge so I could see without putting my eye on the door. None of it was special. It had to work. I turned the spare unit into a decoy with a door that looked almost closed. I kept my core tight. Water came from the balcony into barrels. Food was sealed and counted. The radio stayed off unless I had a reason to turn it on. The rifle and the shotgun stayed in their cases. The pistol stayed on my belt. The knife and the stick lived by the door. If I had to choose, I chose quiet first. People ask how you start. You start by setting the line and keeping it when it hurts. You keep notes. You move slow. You speak in low air. Tariq said I was cold when we met in the hall, and I said I was alive. The hinge shows a fresh scrape that is not mine. I started with the hall from my door to the stair and back, counting steps and changes underfoot. Smooth carpet ran 6 meters, then a loose metal plate gave a thin squeak, so I marked it with a white dot. A small map went on a card taped inside the frame. The buffer unit stayed locked from the inside. The decoy unit looked careless on purpose. A paper slip in the latch that read, "Delivery Notice." A tilted shade, 1 shoebox near the jam. People grab for notes before they look, and hurried hands make noise. The goal was attention away from the core. Across that decoy threshold sat a thin line at ankle height tied to a bottle of ball bearings. A blind push shook the bottle and sent a rattle through the wall. Inside sat nothing of value, only empty tins, a cracked chair, and dust that made sneakers whisper. At my own door, I set a light trap. A small flashlight stayed beside the peephole, angled so it would not spill into the hall. 1 thumb on tape, a short press, and the beam hit close eyes and bought a second to act. The tape mark showed where the switch lived, so a hand could find it half asleep. Signals stayed simple. Contacts lit a small LED on the desk when a hinge shifted or a bar lifted. If a light tripped by mistake, we searched until the cause sat clear, then fixed the point and tested again. Ultraviolet dots sat on hinges and latches to show the last check. A smear or a missing mark meant fingers on metal. Morning and night, the marks got a look before any bar moved. If something shifted without permission, doors stayed closed and an ear went to wood for 15 minutes. Noise mattered more than muscle. The building carried a steady hum from tired fans and wind in the shaft. New sounds stood out: the drag of rubber, a sleeve brushing paint, a cough behind a door. Radios stayed dark unless smoke or blood forced them on. A checklist hung by the frame: helmet inside, mask outside, knife and stick at the jam, pistol holstered, rifle or shotgun only when leaving the core or expecting a push. Wedges, tape, marker, 2 batteries, 1 cord. I read it before I touched steel. Neighbors existed, but distance stayed practical. Tariq lived 5 doors down. 2 knocks, a pause, then 1 more meant he needed help. Priya lived above with her aunt. Most contact ran through short notes tucked in an empty outlet plate. Early signs of the group we later called the Caretakers showed as neat chalk points at knee height near hinges nobody on our side had marked. Someone was logging door flex and learning the floor without talk. A wiped mark near the buffer jam returned the next day, smaller and lower. The stair door told its story. 3 scuffs sat where a wedge had rested. Dust was brushed in a shallow curve. A faint bite in paint lined up with a tool that paused, then lifted. When a bar rattles yet holds, patient people mark the spot and return after dark. Patterns changed at once. The front room light stayed off so no shadow touched the curtains. One barrel slid closer to the hall wall to catch the bottle rattle. Cooking moved earlier, water hauling moved later, and no task kept the same minute twice. I cut habits before someone else learned them. Soft steps belonged to a scout who moved when kettles boiled. Heavy, uneven steps belonged to two infected that drifted by twice a week. Late one afternoon, sunlight slid under the decoy door, a narrow strip that told more than any peephole. The glow dimmed when a body blocked it. A finger lifted the paper slip and let it fall. The lock clicked once, then twice, then stopped. Steps moved away soft and even. By week's end, the core stayed lean, the decoy sold its lie, and the buffer bought seconds. LEDs told movement. Ultraviolet ink showed fingers that did not belong. Leaving for water no longer felt like gambling because the desk lights showed each threshold the moment shoes crossed the mat. 2 nights later, a new dot appeared on the hinge plate of the decoy, low enough that only a crouch could place it. The mark carried a glossy shine like fresh oil rubbed into the metal. Another line sat on the stair rail at hip height, short and neat, pointing up instead of down. Tariq knocked the pattern, 2, pause 1. I answered with 1, pause 1 to say wait. Through the door he spoke low. Arrow means timing, not direction, Tariq said, and the note went on the card with a red slash beside the stair line. Rain hit hard, then stopped. In the quiet that followed, the decoy latch lifted a hair and settled again. Breathing sat close on the other side of the wood, 3 slow counts, then nothing. The hinge indicator blinked once and went dark. I pulled the bar to test fit, set it back, and wrote time. Plan for tomorrow moved earlier. If a hinge moves again without warning, the next step is clear. No opening without a second set of eyes, and no patience at thresholds when the dots smear fresh. Morning jobs start with water. I check the barrels on the balcony, mark levels on blue plastic, and date the last boil on each lid. Rain is clean or it is not. If it looks right and smells right, it still gets boiled. The catch stays simple. 2 awnings tilt toward a short gutter that feeds a hose into the first barrel. A second hose jumps to the next, and a third runs to a small bin for washing. Cloth in the first tray keeps leaves out, a finer layer under it catches grit, and a lid goes on fast because dust finds every gap. Water is heavy. A full barrel plants itself and a half barrel wants to slide. Straps lock the feet and wedges sit under the front edge so a gust does not walk the weight across tile. A tie line runs from the railing to the barrel rings, low and tight. When wind pulls, I watch the ties first. If a strap frays, it gets cut and replaced. Boil in batches when the sky is gray and fuel time is open. A simple pot takes it to safe, not rolling, because we save what we can. A thermometer lives in the drawer and the number goes in the log. Hot enough saves fuel, Priya said through the door, and she was right. Storage stays honest. Drinking water wears green tape. Wash water wears blue tape. Red tape means hands off until the next boil. Every jug gets initials and time. If a number drifts, I look for why. If a lid clicks, it goes to waste. A hand pump moves water inside without carrying. The hose slips through the balcony gap at floor level so I do not fight the threshold. The pump stands on a tray so any spill stays in reach of a towel. Balcony work runs on low wind and low eyes. No hanging lights, no loud clacks. A safety line clips from belt to inside bar when I lean past the frame. I hate the tether, but I keep it clipped. On storm days, I set anchors and check every tie before the first gust. Awnings pull like sails when rain hits them right. The gutter clogs where the hose meets the bend. A short stick clears the lip and I step back when the surge comes. The first flush runs brown and then clear. A clamp failed during a night squall and the first barrel drifted across wet tile. The strap held. The ring bent. We lost a third of a day to clean up and a week of trust in that corner. Anchors grew wider and a spare strap hangs within reach. The fix goes in the log and gets read at dusk. Most days bring careful chores. Lids get wiped, seals get checked. Each barrel gets a tap so pitch tells level without opening. Marks go on the card and I move on. Some days push the line. A pane to the south rattles in certain winds and shards would fall into our lines if it goes. We pull it when the sky sits still, Russo said, and we agreed. Water sets the ration. If levels sit high, porridge gets more and washing takes 2 pans. If the lines show low, spoons get short and the stove rests. Nobody argues with a barrel that shows its bottom. The numbers keep us honest while weather makes the rules. Trust shows in small checks. Tariq marks downspouts on the service floor and I track rain hours on a card. Priya keeps a cup by her door and asks once. I hand it through the gap and she says thanks. We keep noise low and work straight. By late afternoon, the clouds thin. I close the awnings to save fabric from sun and strain. Ties get coiled in the same place because hands reach there fast when wind wakes at night. Grit gets swept to the drain. The board shows water for 4 steady days ahead. If morning brings rain, the catch is ready. If the sky stays clear, we ration and wait our turn. The plan stays simple and simple wins here. 3 short flashes came from a balcony across the alley, 1 floor down and 3 windows left. I watched from the side of the curtain. 2 chairs sat stacked. I answered with 1 soft blink from a covered torch held inside the room, the beam aimed at a wall so only a leak edged out. The reply came back at once, 2 short and 1 long. I wrote the pattern on a card. It matched a simple code. It spelled water I did not move. Rules said no mercy at thresholds and nobody dies unseen. Both could hold if I learned more. Another line spelled help sick woman. The pause before woman felt uncertain. I scanned for signs, for the shuffle of extra feet or the gleam of a lens. Curtains stayed still. Tariq tapped 2 knocks, pause 1. I answered 1, pause 1, and set the bar a finger to speak. The flashes, Tariq said. I said it was a water ask and a sick call. Could be true, Tariq said. Could be bait. I said we would test from here. He said he would watch the service stair while I worked the line. I used a coin and tape to narrow the flashlight into a pinhole. I kept the timing loose. I sent short questions. How many? How long sick? Bitten. They answered 2, 3 days, no. I asked age and they said 30. I asked where pain and they said chest, cough, fever. Priya answered through her door. Water first, then heat, Priya said. If you pass water, count it and mark it, no open contact. I asked about salts. 1 packet, Priya said. Hand it with the water if you choose to help. The decoy stayed quiet. The buffer hinge dots stayed clean. If the caretakers studied our floor, they were resting. I waited for the hall to settle before sending more. I told the other balcony to show a hand for 2 slow counts to confirm distance. A hand rose at the rail. I asked them to repeat with a delay I named. They matched it. The signal came from that spot. 3 options sat with us. Leave it, pass water without contact, bring them to a trap and hold 3 days. The last needed votes and a calm stare. The first cost nothing now and maybe more later. The middle fit our rules and our stock. We set for a pass at dawn. Tariq said he would cover the stair. I said I would handle the door. Priya said she would listen at her vent. Russo keyed once and said ready, then went dark. Night ran long. Twice the light across sent please and then sorry. I answered with a time mark and a wait. At 2 the hinge light blinked and went dark. I did not open. Gray light came flat. I set 2 sealed bottles on the mat, added a small packet of salts and wrote mixing on a card in block letters. Drink slow, no contact. Tariq counted down from 5 through the door. On 1 I cracked the bar an inch and slid the bottles onto the hall mat we keep for this. No one spoke. No one ran. A voice came from the far bend. We can swap, the voice said. We know you keep water up high. I set the lock and bar without replying. Tariq said from the stair that 2 shadows stood near the corner, still and facing away. 1 glove showed a bright patch. The balcony flashed, thank you, sorry. Won't ask again. The spelling matched the first ask. Same hands, same stress. The hallway voice stayed quiet after. By morning, the cough returned in light. Cough bad? I asked if blood had shown. No. I asked high or low pain. High. Priya said heat and rest help when pills are scarce. I told the balcony to hang a damp sheet and breathe under it while warming a pot with a candle for 20 minutes. If the cough eased, blink twice. 30 minutes later, the light blinked twice. Near noon, a new mark cut the stair rail, 2 short lines and 1 long. I rubbed the metal and the scratch stayed bright. Tariq said we needed to shift runs again. I moved water to evening, gear to morning, and food to midday so nobody could set a watch and predict us. Midday brought a pain shiver on the south stack. The edge lined up with our awning tie. If it fell, it would cut the line and drag the fabric into the alley. I clipped the belt and leaned out while Russo held the strap inside. 2 minutes, Russo said. I said 2 would do. The pain held. I chalked an X to remind us to pull it when the sky sat still. The balcony stayed dark. Late afternoon, I sent a final policy. No contact after dark. Signal at dawn only. They flashed okay and went still. Evening changeover stayed clean and quiet. The decoy stayed closed. The buffer lock stayed true. The stair showed a new scuff at ankle height, the kind you make when you test a door with the front of your shoe. I drew an arrow on my card and wrote the minute. After sundown, I set a chair near the frame and placed 1 foot on the lower bar so pressure would speak without sound. At 9, a laugh echoed 2 floors under and died in a cough. At 10, a single metal ding came from the elevator and stopped. At 2, the hinge light blinked once and went dark again. The last message arrived before first light. Please again, then sorry, then we owe you, when timing slipped and they had to start over. I did not answer. Dawn was the next safe window. I waited with an ear to wood. Tariq said from the stair that he saw a shadow under the decoy door that had not been there at midnight. I said hold and count. He said the shadow did not move. I said we would hit the peephole lamp on 3 and watch for a flinch. He counted down and I set my thumb where the tape taught. The lamp threw a pin through the peephole. The shadow did not flinch. It was not a body. It was a wedge under the hinge, set by a hand that works in the dark. The balcony across flashed once, then twice, and the second blink cut short like someone took the light out of a shaking hand. The wedge was new, bright, and set with slow care. The garbage chute serves 3 jobs: waste, drops, and messages. I keep it clean, dry, and closed. The hatch sits at hip height, and a rubber stop keeps the lid from slamming. Noise is a cost we cannot pay. I clear the route before use. Hall first, stair second, elevator lobby last. Tariq stands by the stair and counts. Priya listens at her vent. If either hears steps, the run pauses. Simple keeps us here. Bags stay small so they slide. Each bag gets tied twice and taped once. If the knot fails, the tape holds long enough to recover. A cord loops through the handle to my wrist and I never lean past the frame. The chute drop lives 2 floors down. A shelf with a false lip sits under the bend. If someone crawls in from the service hall and reaches the panel, 1 push breaks the lip and the shelf tilts. The fall is short and hard. We arm it only when the floor is clear. Today's job is waste and 1 dead drop. Priya wrote a note for the balcony neighbors with a salt mix recipe and a few signs to seek air. The note is brief, folded and sealed in a small jar. I added a line about dawn signals and no contact after dark. I logged the time, the bag count, and the jar. Tariq said he is ready. I set the mat under my feet. The hatch lifts, the lid clears, and the first bag slides without sticking. The second bag snags at the bend. I ease the cord and pull a hand's width. The tape seam caught on a rough edge. Twist, press, let the seam lead, and the bag goes. I note the bend needs sanding when the day allows. The jar runs last. A light wrap keeps glass from ringing. The jar rides in a sleeve with a string tail so I can feel the weight change. I said, sending 1 jar. And Tariq said he is marking it. Priya said to remind them to boil before salts. The line is already in the note. I hold the hatch open and let the sleeve go. The string moves smooth, then slows, then drops free. I wait for the thud that says the jar reached the landing. There it is. I close the hatch and lock it. We run the retrieval path next. The service floor door opens from our side with a key on a red cord. Tariq said the hall is clear. We cross the tile on the taped route so shoes do not squeak. At the service door, I check the jamb and the hinge dot. Clean. Tariq opens, we enter, and I lock behind us. We stop at the chute landing. The jar sits on the pad. The bags lie flat and tight, no leaks. I pick the jar and pass it to Tariq. He says he will set it by the balcony stair at dusk, the place we picked. We stack the bags on a hand truck and pull them to the bin. Lids shut, straps tight, nothing drips. On the way back, we reset the latch on the service door and brush any marks that teach the path. We check the false lip and the pin that holds it safe. Safe mode stays on. The run ends with a log entry and a wash. The chute is not clever. It is a hole in a wall that saves steps and lowers risk when we respect it. The day keeps moving and the hall stays quiet. Door math keeps panic in check. One door gets 2 barriers and 1 backstop. The first slows a hand, the second stops a rush. The backstop saves the frame if they win the push. I set the first bar at shoulder height where force lands. It drops in 1 clean move. The second sits lower, a wedge that bites the floor and turns straight force into dead weight. The backstop is a heavy piece behind the line, a shelf and a box that cannot roll. If a hinge fails, the backstop keeps the gap small. Placement beats price. A cheap bar in the right spot beats a fancy latch in the wrong spot. The wedge must bite forward, not slide back. The backstop must sit where it cannot skid when a boot hits. I draw chalk where each piece should land in practice until hands know the path. The peephole stays cold unless needed. A small lamp sits on tape beside it. Thumb finds the switch by feel and the beam hits eyes that press too close. Light buys a second. Tariq asked why 2 bars if the door is thick. I said weight and position beat confidence. If hands slam high, Tariq said, does a low wedge work? I said the low wedge steals their strength. Lock stays simple and routine stays exact. Unlock bar, wedge, backstop, then check labels without talk. I test the swing with a toe. I never fix noise at midnight. Hinges tell the truth. They shine when fingers study them. Fresh oil means recent hands. If the hinge looks wrong, I do not open. I bring Tariq to listen. The hinge bite sits behind the trim. It is the only trap I arm with a full breath first. It needs a clear decision and a narrow window. If someone levers the hinge hard, the bite turns the motion against the tool. We keep it safe unless the floor is clear and the threat is real. Priya said it scares her to know it exists. I said it scares me too. So the switch stays taped and the rule stays close. Promise you will not arm it for a knock, Priya said. I said I promise and wrote it in the log. Knock patterns stay the same. 2. Pause, 1 is Tariq. 1 pause, 2 is Priya. 3 fast is trouble. We speak through wood with words a child could follow. Step back, I said to a stranger who breathed close. If you step back, I will answer 1 question. Air moved away. I asked, are you alone? He said no. Then you wait, I said. The decoy across the hall sells a clean story to a thief. A paper slip in the latch says delivery notice. The shade falls wrong. A small click makes the latch sound alive now and then. When someone tries that door first, the core stays safe longer. We reset the details every few days. Each morning I walk the thresholds. I brush dust at the hinge line. I touch the jamb where a wedge might sit. I look for chalk that is not mine. The caretakers like low marks. We erase them and move our times. Quiet hours fill with small drills, bars on, bars off. Wedge down, wedge up, backstop set, backstop clear. If the strap snags, I fix it. If the lamp switch misses, I change the tape. One evening, the hinge dot smeared bright. I called Tariq. He said he was at the stair with eyes on the bend. Priya said she would listen for coughs. The plan was simple. I would use the lamp. Tariq would watch for a flinch. If steel slid in the gap, I would hold the backstop and the wedge and keep the bite on safe. The knock came slow. "We can trade," a calm voice said. "We only need a little water." I said, "Step back from the door if you want to talk." The voice moved half a step and stopped. Tariq said he saw a shoulder near the bend. I flicked the lamp for 1 second. The beam hit a sleeve and a clean wedge glinted under the hinge. "Back away from the hinge," I said. "You are marked." "Leave the floor," the voice said. "We can make a deal." I said, "No deals at the threshold." Silence held 10 breaths. The wedge stayed. The shoulder shifted. Tariq said, "2 more in the corner." I said, "Step back now." Feet scraped. The wedge slid out. Steps moved away. After they left, I logged the time and the marks. I did not chase. I checked the bite, taped the switch, and wrote a note. If a wedge shows again, we pull the backstop forward and double the lower bar for a week. Before sleep, I walked the 3 doors: mine, buffer, decoy. I wrote what changed and what did not. The hinge looked dull again. The peephole stayed clean. The backstop held square. 2 barriers and 1 backstop, same as yesterday and tomorrow, unless tomorrow proves me wrong. I slid the chair to the frame and set a foot on the lower bar so pressure would speak without sound. The hall kept its hum. My hand sat near the tape mark for the lamp. If the hinge brightens again, we know what to do and when to stop talking again. The elevator sits dead between floors. The doors on our level are taped. A thin draft slides through the seam and leaves a dust line. I check that line every morning. Russo knows the cars. He showed me the ladder behind the service panel and the hatch into the shaft on the machine floor below. We set a rule: no shouting, no metal on metal, no fast steps. The shaft turns small sounds into trouble. Some infected sleep in the cold air and wake when the world vibrates. I carry the pistol but keep it covered. The shotgun stays home. A shot in the shaft becomes an alarm for the block. I go down with Russo. Tariq sits at the service stair with the radio off. Priya counts minutes. I hold the panel while Russo opens the inner latch. Cool air smells like oil. We listen. The ladder drops 12 feet to the hatch of the machine floor. Russo leads. I follow with a small bag and a coil of cord. We step slow to kill vibration. The hatch opens on felt hinges. The room holds dead equipment and 2 cabinets bolted to the wall. Tools in one, counterweight locks, and a bar in the other, a bar we hope never to use. 2 checks today. First, the guide rails where the car stalled last winter. Second, the counterweight path for a last-ditch move we call the kiss. The kiss is a drop that uses the heavy block as a hammer to stop a breach. It is ugly and one use only. Russo points at the rails. Dust sits even, no flake. He gives 1 low sweep with the light and kills it again. A soft sound comes from above like cloth on steel. We freeze. It comes again, closer to the far side of the shaft. The sound fades, and at the counterweight side we study the path. The blocks hang on steel and run in guides. A stop bolt sits in a bracket and takes a pin. If the pin pulls, the block drops 6 inches and hits a plate. That shock could end anyone forcing a door, but it would also wake sleepers. I whisper we should add a second pin. "Agreed," Russo said, and he locks the bracket safe. He tilts his head. "Do you hear that?" Russo said. I catch a distant tap, slow and even from the car level above. Tariq taps back. 1, pause 1. That says he hears it too. I say we hold 20 counts. Priya whispers. No voices. Just taps and goes quiet. Something slides across the car floor above, a short scrape like a shoe. We test for vibration with fingertips on the cabinet. Maybe a hand, maybe a tool. I look up through the ladder zone. A thin line of hall light slips into the seam at our floor. A shadow cuts it and moves away. When I reach 30, the line stays clean. Back at the rails, we brush dust with a folded card. Any smear would tell who moved and how far. It stays even. Whatever touched steel did not push the guides. Russo takes out a short stick wrapped in cloth, presses it to the wall and listens. I do the same near the counterweight guides. No rumble, no wheeze. We log the checks. Time, place, state. Rails clean, bracket safe, 2 pins set. Hatch felt good. I copy the lines for the board upstairs. Before we go, Russo tests the kiss fit without the drop. He slides the bar into the channel and seats it with his palm. The pin sits flush. If we ever have to pull, the motion will be smooth and fast. I hope we never see that day. On the climb up, my foot slips on a rung slick with dust. The cord on my wrist stops the bag from swinging, and the felt on the hatch keeps the lid from barking. I reset my foot and breathe once. At the top, the panel slides back into place. Tape goes on the seam. Tariq whispers, "Shadow at the decoy." No push, I say. We hold and wait. Priya says 2 coughs above me. Same pattern. I write the times and circle the car level. The sleepers stayed asleep. The guides stayed clean. The kiss stayed in its cradle. We start back toward the core with slow feet and steady hands. Halfway to our door, the hinge light blinks once and dies. Now. We set a narrow window for talk. Noon, light in the hall, fans off so air stayed still. Tariq watched the stair. Priya listened at her vent. Russo stood at the elevator lobby with tape on his wrist. I checked the peephole and saw 2 men by the bend. One wore a vest, the other kept his hands in his pockets. I set the lamp within reach and put my heel on the lower bar. The pistol stayed holstered. The shotgun leaned inside the bedroom with the door closed, no deals at a threshold. If they wanted words, they stood back and showed both hands. "Step back from the frame and show hands," I said. "If you do that, we can talk." The vest moved first and lifted his hands. The other shifted half a step into view. "We're caretakers," the vest said. "We clear floors and keep them quiet. We don't want your food. We want a share of water for safety," I said. "We keep our own safety." He smiled. "Safety is math," the vest said. "You'll sleep better if we carry your risk." "You want a tax?" I said. "Name it," he said. 2 jugs a week and 1 pass to inspect your doors." I said, "No inspection, no share." The second man spoke soft. "We don't take what you can't spare," he said. "We take what keeps the floor stable," I said. "Our floor's stable without you." The vest glanced at the decoy door and back to mine. "You've got an empty unit selling a story," he said. "Nice touch." "A story doesn't stop a push," I said. "Neither does a sales pitch. You line up furniture. We make neighbors stop knocking. That's value. If you come again, bring a real offer," I said. "We have water because we built it. We share by vote, not threat. Vote if you like," he said. "Votes don't move mobs." He eased closer to the hinge line. Tariq said from the stair, "2 more at the far end." Priya said, "No voices above me." The second man drifted so his shoulder covered my view of the lower hinge. His foot turned toward the jamb. "Back from the hinge," I said. "Leave the floor the way you came." The vest scratched his jaw. "We're not your enemy," he said. "We kept that stair clear last month." I said, "The stair stayed clear because people with sense moved on." A tool flashed near the hinge. Russo said, "Metal, scrape at your frame." My thumb found the lamp tape. The wedge I had seen days earlier now sat in that busy hand. "We can lock this floor and make it ours," the vest said. "You don't want to be on the wrong side when we finish the line." I said, "You finish nothing here." "Pride gets you hurt," he said. I said, "Pride keeps the door closed." I hit the lamp for 1 beat. The beam struck eyes. The wedge hand jerked but pressed anyway. The hinge pin groaned and held. I kept the bite safe and the bars set. "That's your warning," I said. "Back off!" The vest lowered his hands. "We can help you," he said. "We can bring what you can't lift." I said, "Bring nothing. Leave nothing. Stay off this floor. Tell me what you need." I said, "We need you gone." Tariq said, "3 at the corner now." Priya said, "Cough above me." "Not ours." The vest gave a chin signal. Pressure touched the lower bar as a tool tested the hinge. I waited for a second push. It came. The tool searched for bite. "Last warning," I said. "Step back." "Show me," he said. I did not arm the bite. I lifted the backstop an inch, then dropped it. The tool lost leverage and clinked to tile. The second man bent to grab it. Tariq said, "Don't!" He froze and stood up slow. "We'll come back in daylight with a cart," the vest said. "We'll take our share then." I said, "You won't." He tilted his head toward the decoy. "That door looks thirsty," he said. "The decoy bites harder than it looks," I said. "You bluff cute," he said. I said, "Walk." They drifted toward the bend and stopped, heads together. I heard only shoes. Russo said, "Elevator ding 2 floors down." Tariq said, "4 bodies, split pair." The vest turned back. "Schedules beat rules," he said. "We'll be on this floor when the schedule says we will." "Try it," I said. "You're alone," he said. "Your notes won't carry you through a push." He stepped back 2 paces. The second man eased a fresh wedge from his pocket and palmed it low. He wanted the hinge again, not now, but later. Quiet and clean. "Trade now or bleed later," the vest said. I said, "Leave now or limp later." Priya whispered. 20 seconds of quiet above. I said, "Hold." "Last call," he said. 2 jugs a week, 1 inspection. We post 2 of ours at night so people pass by. I said, "No." He shrugged. "Then you get who you get." Shoes scraped. The group turned. The second man let the wedge drop. It slid to rest under the decoy hinge. They moved off. Tariq counted steps. Russo said the lobby was clear. Priya said the cough returned, steady. I held still. Then I checked the hinge line with 1 short pulse from the peephole lamp. No hands, no shadow. I eased the bar and set it again to feel the fit. I wrote time and marks on the card and underlined wedge. Tariq said, "One stays near the service door." I said, "Hold positions and count to 60. At 40, a soft scrape came from under the decoy door, then a quiet click near the hinge. The click came again, closer to metal, and a faint shine of oil showed at the trim, waiting. Rain held off since dawn. Priya needed cough pills 2 balconies over and 1 floor down. We agreed on a line at dusk, fast and quiet, no radios unless something broke. Tariq watched the stair. Russo checked the loose pane near our awning tie, and I set the seat and pulley on the balcony rail. The seat is a plank with a buckle. The line runs to a bolt on the neighbor beam we placed last month. I clip to the inside bar while I thread the pulley, then clip to the seat. The pistol stays at my belt. The knife rides on the strap, no loose tools, and wind feels steady. I call count. 3, 2, 1. Tariq said he has the haul. Russo said the pain is holding. Priya said she will watch the cough and the stove. I roll out and take the line. Movement stays slow to keep noise low. The pulley hum is a thread. I keep eyes on the landing point and my feet tucked. A gust swings me a width, then I settle. Halfway across, glass on the far facade wobbles in its frame. It is the panel we chalked weeks ago, and the edge hangs over the landing spot. If it drops, it falls across the line like a blade. I breathe once, reach up, and slow the pulley with my palm. The swing stops. I hang 2 counts, then move again. Boots touch the far rail. I step onto tile, unclip, and pull the seat against the wall. The balcony door is stuck, but not locked. I push from the hinge side and open a hand's width. A woman stands with a blanket over her shoulders and a small lamp on the floor. She looks past me toward the air and presses a pill bottle into my hand. "Take the rest," she said. I said thank you and handed her 2 packets of rice and the salt mix. A clink comes from above. The glass panel taps metal. I look up and see a bright line where the frame pulled away. "Time to go," I said. She nods and closes the door. I clip again and push out. The line takes weight and I start back. The panel twitches. A corner lifts. I keep the seat down and the pulley centered. The wind shifts and the awning tie snaps once. Midway, the panel cracks and peels free. It starts to drop toward the line. I pinch the pulley and stop. The glass scythe falls in 1 sheet, hits the edge, and shatters into the alley. A few shards ring off the rail and die. I move again. The trip back takes 8 seconds. Tariq said the stair is clear. Russo said the pain is done. Priya said the cough is steady. My feet hit our rail. I unclip and pull the seat in. The hinge light blinks twice and goes dark. A wedge sits under the decoy hinge, bright and set true. Wind rose late and pushed grit along the alley. A dark bank stacked over the river and the first drops came hard. I checked barrel straps, tightened one buckle and watched the awnings flex. The chalk X on the south pane marked weak glass we pull on a calm day. Today was not calm. Tariq said he had the stare. Priya said the cough above was light. Russo said the elevator lobby was clear. I set wet towels by the door in case hallway air turned dirty. Storms move noise around, and noise brings company we do not want. Rain hit the awnings in sheets. Gutters filled and cleared. I watched water flow to the first barrel. It turned clean after the first rush. Marks rose to the next notch. Thunder followed a flash. Lights stayed off. I put the rifle behind the couch. The shotgun leaned by the bedroom door. 10 minutes later, the corridor smelled wrong. Faint, then clear. Hot plastic and old dust. My palm felt a little heat at the door. Priya said, "I smell it too." Tariq said, "No glow in the stair." Russo said, "Lobby normal." Fire in an empty unit can turn a floor dead. We did not wait. I rolled the rug aside. Tape went across the bottom gap and wet towels covered the seam. Windows stayed closed. Bedrooms and kitchen got a quick check for hot cords or sparks. Nothing. Heat felt stronger near the buffer unit. I told Tariq to stand clear. He said he was back 2 steps and watching for light. 2 buckets live by the kitchen. I filled both and set them by the frame. Priya said, "Keep air from the hall out." I said the towels were in place. She said, "If smoke pushes under, crawl low and wait." I said we would do it her way. Russo went to the service floor to touch the far side of the buffer. He said the metal felt warm at that door. We did not open. We listened. A crack like a plate fell, a hiss like a candle, no steps, just rain and a soft hiss again. Heat on the door rose, then leveled. That told me the burn was small and low. Tariq said, "No smoke in the stair." Priya said, "My air is clean." Russo said, "Service hall smells like burned paper." The peephole showed gray light and a swirl from draft. An alarm started 2 floors below and ran 20 seconds, then died. Someone tore a head off the ceiling to kill the noise. That meant people below us. I wrote times and the words we heard, then kept the bars set. When smoke reached our seam, it came thin and slow. Towels darkened at the edge. Room air stayed clear. Mask on, helmet set. I told Tariq I would test the decoy gap. He said, "Make it fast." I gave him a count. The decoy door opened a finger. A gray line hung near ankle height, thicker at the bend. No flame. I closed and sealed. "Light smoke only?" I said. Priya said, "They lit trash to test us." Tariq said, "Soft push on the bend." Russo said, "Metal tap near the lobby." We waited and let the storm do work. Rain cut the draft and the smoke lost shape. A window broke a floor below and the wind dragged the smell away. I reset the towels and checked the balcony, straps held. Marks climbed. Then a loud knock hit the buffer door, flat and slow. "Step back from the frame," I said. A voice said, "We need help." "We've got smoke," I said. "Go to the stair and head down." The voice said, "The stair is blocked." Tariq whispered, "It's clear." I said, "The stair is clear. Use it now." No answer. The knock moved to the decoy and changed tone. A tool scraped the hinge line. Thumb on the peephole lamp, I held breath. The scrape paused. A wedge tip showed in the gap. One short pulse of light hit metal and died. No retreat. The tip kept testing for bite. "Back off," I said. "You are marked." A second click sounded at the latch. "We can trade," the voice said. I said, "No trade." "Leave the floor," Tariq said. "2 in the bend." One near the service door, Priya said, "Air clean again." Rain increased. Gutters sang. A gust slapped the awnings and water poured into the first barrel. Cover noise hid small sounds in the hall. I set a chair and put one foot on the lower bar. A thin glow passed under the decoy. Not fire, a lamp on the floor to watch our shadow. I pushed the backstop closer, lifted and dropped it so the weight settled. The glow moved back an inch. The wedge scratched once more and stopped. "Last chance," the voice said. Open and we keep you safe from the floor below. I said, leave. He said, we'll be back when the rain stops. I said, don't. Steps faded toward the bend. Tariq said, they're moving. Russo said, lobby quiet. Priya said, nothing above. I counted to 60. Towels cooled. The smell thinned. I lifted a corner and took one breath at the seam. Clean. The rug went back. Buckets stayed near the frame. Rain eased at last. We waited while the storm emptied. The barrels filled to safe lines. The chalk X on the south pane stayed visible. I set the card on the board. When I checked the decoy threshold, a wet footprint pointed toward our door, heel at the hinge and toes at our frame. The rain eased at midnight. I checked the hinge light. Nothing. Tariq was at the stair with eyes on the bend. Priya said the cough above was light. Russo held the elevator lobby with tape on his wrist. At one, a shoe scuffed the far corner. Not a shuffle, a set pace. Then another shoe a half beat late, like someone carrying weight. I set my heel on the lower bar and put the peephole lamp under my thumb. A knock came on the buffer door, soft and polite. Open for a quick word, a voice said. I said, step back from the frame. He said, just a word. Tariq said 3 in the bend and 1 near the service door. Priya said her air was clean. The knock repeated harder. We're back in daylight, the voice said. We want what we offered. I said, no inspection. No share. He said, then we take the share we're owed. I said, leave the floor. Shoes whispered. The hinge light blinked once and died. Russo said metal at the lobby. 2 directions. Split eyes. Tariq said the stair went quiet, then woke with 1 foot that slid and stopped. They're placing, Tariq said. I set the backstop closer and lifted it a hair. The wedge sat right. The shotgun leaned behind the bedroom door. The rifle stayed in the case. The pistol rode on my belt. Across the alley, a weak blink showed and died. The neighbors were alive. I wrote the minute. The hinge light flashed twice. Now, Tariq said, 4 moving. The first push hit the decoy. A tool kissed the hinge and a hand tested the latch. I tapped the lamp. The beam hit eyes. The hand jerked but did not leave. Back from the door, I said. A second tool slid under the jamb and lifted. I pulled the chair to the frame and loaded the lower bar with my foot. You stall, the voice said. We cut. I said, leave. The hard move came from the stair. Tariq said, 2 up, 2 behind. The first pair drove for the corner we marked months ago. They hit the smooth strip by the service plate and lost a step. They pushed into the narrows. Hold your lane, someone whispered. I counted to the mark. The false floor sat 3 steps past the bend. Weight hits, panel gives. The drop is short. It came clean. 1 body fell through and hit the tray that mutes the landing. The second man stopped and froze. Tariq said, 1 down. 1 at the edge, I said, do not chase. The man at the edge tried to haul his partner up, then let go. Back out, a whisper said. He bumped the rail and stepped away. At my door, the wedge returned and pressed the hinge. I kept the bite safe and the lamp ready. Last ask, the voice said. 2 jugs a week. I said, no. The wedge worked and the pin groaned. I flashed the lamp. The wedge dropped. He bent to grab it. I said, move your hand or lose it. He held still. Another man reached in from the side for the hinge. I said, step back. Tariq said, 1 leaving the stair. 1 stuck. Russo said the lobby was clear. Priya said, no smoke. Tariq breathed slow and kept the stair watch steady. From the stair came a scrape and a low cry. The man in the tray had cut his leg and was not getting out clean. Help him, someone whispered. A covering man hit the smooth strip, tried again, and reached the edge. I eased the backstop forward a hair. The hinge light stayed dark. Back away, I said. He said, make me. He leaned on the tool. The hinge groaned. I held the lamp. He flinched and kept pressure. I set my foot on the lower bar. The frame gave and stopped. Last chance, I said. Leave the floor. He said nothing. The tool moved. The hinge screamed once. I reached under the tape and armed the bite. "Step back and live," I said. He said, "Cut it." The wedge bit deep. I pulled the short line under the trim. The bite snapped. Force went back through the hinge into the tool. He made a short sound and fell from the door. The tool clattered. The hinge went quiet. "Leave now," I said. From the stair came a plan. "We burn them out," someone said. Tariq said, "They have a bottle." Russo said, "No flame." Priya said, "Wet towels ready." I said, "No throw if they think we'll open." The bottle did not fly. A rope hissed on tile. They hauled the man free and back toward the bend. "Next time we don't knock," the voice said. I said, "Do not come back." They went. Tariq counted them down the stair. Russo said the lobby stayed clear. Priya said the cough fell to a rasp. I wrote time and moves on the card. The false floor worked. The bite spoke once. I kept my foot on the bar for 1 minute. Then I lifted the backstop, checked the hinge, and taped the switch twice so my hand would not arm it in the morning. The hall went back to its hum. We stayed behind our door and let the night close. Dawn comes gray. We check the doors before we speak. The hinge line is quiet. The false floor panel sits open with one corner chipped. No voices in the stair. The decoy wedge is gone. I log times from the night and update the board. First line stay simple. Floor intact, no breach. One injury outside, no fire. Then work starts. We reset the panel with a fresh lip, sweep grit into a jar and tape a red X so we will not step there by habit. The tray below gets a wipe and a rub of chalk so any new mark tells us who moved and when. Tariq checks the stair for blood and leaves none. He says the man who fell bled but walked. Priya sets a pot and notes. Cough better, rest needed. Russo presses his palm to the elevator seam. No heat, no draft. We count water before breakfast. Barrels stand high after the storm. 3 sit at the top line, the 4th one notched down. I mark each lid with time, write boiled on yesterday's batch and move 2 jugs to green tape. Wash water stays blue. The numbers give us a day to breathe. Food count follows. Rice 8 bags, beans 5, canned greens 12, oil 1/3. I write totals, circle oil, and underline no frying. Ammo count comes next. Rifle 20, no change. Shotgun 7. Pistol 9 in the mag, 5 in the box. We do not burn ammo to feel brave. Last night we did not fire, and that was correct. We clean the hinge bite. The switch stays taped, and I add a second band so a lazy hand will not arm it. The bite is not a toy. I write that in the log so my future self will not get clever when tired. I pull the backstop forward and set the lower wedge deeper. A strip of tape marks where my heel sits so I do not hunt for the spot when hands shake. By mid-morning, the hall feels empty. The building noise returns to normal. We pass the service level and smooth chalk that is not ours. Tariq finds a small arrow near the rail, fresh and neat. He rubs it out and marks our board with a slash. The neighbor balcony sends okay at noon. I answer hold steady and point to the jar drop. Tariq takes the stairs, sets 1 jar at the mark and comes back slow. No tails. We give the floor a short window for air. 10 minutes, fan in the kitchen set low. Towels come off the seam and go into a wash bucket. We close up and check the peephole. We review rules after lunch. No lift after dark. Lights low. 1 door, 2 bars, 1 backstop. Talk short. No mercy at thresholds. We add a line for the week. No open trades, no new faces, no balcony meets. Priya asks for a carry to her door. I set a jug on the mat and count. She eases the door a hand's width, pulls the jug inside and says thank you. Russo asks about the kiss, the counterweight drop. We keep it safe, Russo said. 1 more pin, then no touch. I say agreed. We go down 1 level, set the 2nd pin and write a tag. Safe mode only. We climb back and close the hatch on felt. The afternoon brings small fixes. The decoy gets a new paper slip and a false shadow. The buffer door gets a fresh UV dot. The peephole lamp gets fresh tape where my thumb lands. We take turns sleeping. 1 hour each, then rotate. I set the chair by the frame when I wake and let my foot find the bar. Light stays flat. I brew tea from a bag we cut in half. I read the day log and add mistakes. We left one bucket by the door too long. We left the false floor arm 10 minutes past the push. We did not wipe the stair rail until mid-morning. Near dusk, a drone passes far off. Black, fast, no circle. I write the minute and leave it at that. Tariq asks if we plan a run this week. I say no runs until the wedge problem ends. We're stocked, Tariq said. I say yes. The numbers say 4 days of water at full, 7 with stretch, and food for 3 weeks if we keep soup first. Oil remains the risk. We watch cans for clicks and toss what bulges. The neighbor balcony flashes, "Thank you." I answer, steady. No deals, no new plans. After dark, we walk the floor once more. The smooth strip by the service plate looks scuffed. I clean it and press tape back down. The false floor sits safe. The tray below shows 2 new dents and 1 scrape. I brush chalk and leave it clean. Priya calls through her door and asks how the board looks. I read totals and times. We say goodnight. I set a new card with 3 tasks for morning: water lids, hinge scan, stair pass. The big work can wait. Small work keeps the place ours. When sleep comes, it comes quiet. I leave the pistol on the chair rail where my hand finds it. The rifle and the shotgun stay put. I think about the man under the panel. I also write what made that panel necessary and what keeps it safe for us and dangerous for them. Rules are not a story, they are the price. Midnight brings a light shift in air. The towels at the seam do not move. The lamp does not blink. I sleep again. Morning will bring the same start: water, doors, notes. Then we will choose one quiet fix and do it without talk. If the wedge returns, the answer is ready. If it does not, we keep our time and stay boring. A flat week helped. Small fixes and short checks kept the floor quiet. On the 3rd morning, a tone slipped from the radio with the dial parked. 1 beep, a pause, 3 quick, then a voice saying green beacon with coordinates. I turned volume down and wrote the gaps. Tariq had heard the tone 2 nights earlier on the service floor, faint and west. Priya heard talk of a green light on the next roof. Russo remembered a hose left on that roof after the water was shut. The loop hit every 47 seconds without a miss. People drift. Loops keep time. 3 steps toward the balcony made the signal swell. 3 steps back made it fade. The source was close and high. We kept the test simple. No open voices. Tariq watched the stair. Priya timed the loop. Russo stood by the sprinkler wheel for noise cover. I clipped the balcony tether, held the radio low, and turned my shoulder until the tone peaked at the neighbor roof's weather post. The message named a noon meet on a bridge to the east and ended with children. That word pulls anyone who still hopes. Caretakers like set hours and marks who move on time. Our board showed water high and food steady. There was no reason to chase a promise. We moved before dawn and kept low. I wore a pistol under a jacket and a wrench in my pocket, no rifle or shotgun. The stair smelled like dust. We stepped on tape and skipped plates that complain. At the roof door I listened, no steps or talk. The post sat right of the hatch behind a short fence. A cable ran to a box with a green blink. The padlock lay closed but not latched. I checked for tripwire, saw none, and lifted the lid. Inside sat a small radio, a battery pack, and a card that read green beacon. The voice matched the Parley man. Footsteps touched concrete by the far door. 1 set, then a second that held back. 2 en roof, Tariq said through the vent. I pinched the battery clip, set it inside the box so it would not ring, and closed the lid. The first man reached the post and frowned at the dead light. He touched the lid and gave a short order down the hatch. I whispered, "Now." Russo turned the sprinkler wheel. Spray covered the parapet and the post. The sound hid my steps to the rig. I clipped, swung, and pushed off. Water hit the awning and line and masked the pulley squeak. I slid to our rail, unhooked, and rolled inside. Tariq said the stair was clear. Russo said water would stop in 30 seconds. Priya said air clean. 10 minutes passed and the tone stayed gone. At noon, the bridge stayed empty. From the side of the curtain, there were no carts, flags, or line. We kept our balcony code and our knocks in the hall. We did not answer strangers. That night, I wrote the what and why. The board got a line. Ignore green beacons. No broadcast and no reply. Near dusk, the Parley man spoke from the bend and claimed we broke his box. I said we broke his lie. He said families. I said marks. He said enemy. I said loud. His steps went down and we ate beans. I checked the hinge and taped the switch. Before midnight, a weak tone touched the radio again, soft and rough like it came through a wall. I turned the dial to 0, pulled the battery and wrote, second box. Morning brought the same start, then a search for the new source. Tariq watched the service floor and counted beeps. Priya tracked the interval. Russo stood by the wheel. I walked with the set turned low and marked where the tone rose and fell. It peaked near the lobby, fell by the kitchen, and grew strong at the decoy. The service hatch across from our door wore a fresh smear on its hinge dot. I set the chair and put my heel on the bar. Hold, I said. Tariq waited at the bend. Priya listened at her vent. Russo watched the lobby. We counted the loop twice more. A click came at the end of the word like a tongue on a tooth. The hatch needed our key. I hit the peephole lamp once. Light slid under the lip and came back on dust. No shadow. I eased the panel a finger and the tone jumped. Inside sat a small box taped to a duct, green light low, a twin to the roof unit we cut. A thin wire ran toward the stair void. I did not cut or drag. I pressed the battery clip, set it inside the lid, and closed the panel. The tone stopped. Tariq said the stair stayed quiet. Russo said the lobby stayed quiet. Priya said air clean. We held 5 minutes, nothing moved. I locked the hatch and drew a tiny cross on the frame to watch for hands. We left the box and wire in place and kept eyes on the mark. If they came back to wake their lure, we would see it. If they gave up, the word would go dark. Either way, the rules stayed the same. Do not follow a voice that sells a clean road at noon. At last light, a new pattern brushed the edge of hearing. One beep, one pause, too quick, and a word hiding in static. The interval drifted. They were testing from farther out or from a bad room. I logged the time and set the chair for night. The floor stayed ours, but the lure had moved. Tomorrow we would map it again and decide on a third pull if needed. For now, I kept my foot on the bar, thumb near the tape. If the hinge light blinked, we would stop talking and go back to rules. Keep the door closed when doubt creeps in. Keep water steady and food simple. Don't chase radio voices. Don't open for salesmen or scouts. If you hear green beacon, mark it, then move on. If someone sells safety for a price, they want your door. If a stranger asks for a tour, they want your map. Keep rules short. Tape them where tired eyes can read. Practice bars and wedges when the hall is quiet, not when your hands shake. If you live high, share water only when it's safe. Vote when you can. Say no fast when you must. Count stock. Count noise. Count people who trust you. Make hard calls where they can see you. If this reaches you, pass it on. Save power. Save breath. Log times and scratches. Check hinges at dawn and at dark. Trade on your terms. Walk away from clean promises. Stay boring. Stay steady. No lift after dark. Lights low. 1 door, 2 bars, 1 backstop. Talk short. No mercy at thresholds. Hold the line and come home alive. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. See you in the next one.